Hi everyone, welcome to my channel, Go So Beautiful. My name is Becky and today I'm sharing my first make from the fabric Wheel of Fate. Last Wednesday, a week ago, I spun the wheel and it landed on this lovely rayon challis, which I think I got from fabric.com several years ago and just never made anything up in it. So this week I decided to make the Rhapsody Dress from Love Notions. Now, it's got several different sleeve variations, and of course the dress is sleeveless, but I wanted to make a winter dress, so I added these bishop sleeves. So I laid my fabric out just to make sure that I would have enough for these long bishop sleeves, and I did. I was pretty careful about it and made sure that, there was enough for each piece. And I didn't shorten the skirt or the bodice. Hindsight, I probably should have done that. But I went ahead and cut it out. Only when I cut it out, I started with the sleeves instead of the other end of the fabric. And by the time I got down to cutting the last piece out, which was the front bodice, I was about this much short. And it wasn't even the whole piece. It was just a chunk out of the shoulder. And I was pretty mad at myself for not having been more careful. I could have shortened any number of pieces, and which would have allowed me to have enough fabric, but I was in a hurry. So anyway, I cut it on the cross grain. I never do that. There's something that just makes me think it's not going to be right if it's not on grain, but it's sort of on grain. It's just the cross grain. Anyway, you can't tell. So it did have its challenges. And but I was going along just fine after I cut it out and was sewing it up. I got to the skirt and the bodice where you attach the skirt and bodice together, and the instructions read, all the seams are 1/2 inch allowance. And I made French seams for 2 reasons. One, because my serger was in the shop. It's not sick, it's just being serviced. So, and with 1/2 inch seams, you can still do French seams, and I thought that would be a nice finish. But here, you're supposed to put the bodice inside the skirt, sew a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and then serge the edge without cutting any off, and then you iron it up towards the bodice and stitch that seam to the bodice, creating a casing for elastic. So let's do the math here. They suggest that you use 3/8 inch elastic. You have a 1/2 inch seam allowance. You've serged a small amount, and then you stitch it. They said, I believe, 1/8 inch from the edge. That's pretty shallow, in my opinion. But even so, if you did stitch it just 1/8 inch, theoretically, by math, you would have 3/8 inch left for the 3/8 inch elastic. But no, 3/8 inch elastic will not go through a casing that is only 3/8 inch wide. And so, yeah, I had a whole lot of trouble trying to get that elastic through that casing. And finally, I took the seam apart. I didn't take the seam apart. I took the stitching out where I had stitched it up to the bodice and tried to make it a little bigger. I used a zigzag stitch so that it wouldn't fray, and that didn't really help. So I took that out, and then I decided I need to make the seam a little bigger. For one thing, even if the math worked out, the elastic is bulky and it's not going to fit in that tiny an area. So I think for this particular pattern, if you decide to make it, you need to make at least a 5/8 inch seam where you attach the skirt to the bodice. So I finally got the elastic. Well, actually, before I put the elastic in, I tried it on to see where that seam hit me. And I used a drawstring or a string to put it around the waist to see how it would look. It did not look good, okay? My my natural waistline is not the narrowest part of my torso, and it was not very flattering. So I pulled it up a little bit to where the narrowest part of my torso is, slightly above my natural waistline and below my bust, and it looked much better. So what did I do? I took that sucker apart and cut 1.5 inches off the bodice. Then I sewed it back together. I finally got the elastic in and finally got it through. This morning, I finished this dress. So I'm sure you want to see it. This is the dress, and I'll put pictures of me wearing it. I did manage to get the elastic in the sleeves. It's got elastic in the waist, which you can't see very well because there you can see it a little better. And then it does have a curved hem at the bottom. Oh, you can't see it, but when I show you the pictures of me modeling it, you'll see it. The curved hem was kind of cute, and I know with rayon, I think you're supposed to let it hang for a couple of days. I didn't have the patience for that, so I just went ahead and serged the edge and then folded it over twice to make like a 1/4 inch hem. All in all, I'm happy with it. I did notice, though, when I was modeling it, that the elastic in the waist is too loose now. I had so much trouble getting it in. And I think I'm going to tighten it up a little bit eventually. But for now, I'm done. So, put a little clip in here of me wearing it. I just put some black leggings on with it and some pretty little flats. They have a little wedge, so they're comfortable and I won't fall when I'm wearing them. I cannot wear heels anymore, okay? It's too much of a fall risk for me. So, anyway, let me know what you think in the comments. Okay, so now that I've got my first make under my belt, it's time to spin the wheel for a second make. Okay, so another thing that happened this week, I had a lot of trouble in the sewing room this week. I dropped my spinner, my twister spinner. I had it kind of propped up on my pegboard, and it fell down, and this plastic spinner broke. So I was like, what am I going to do now? If my dad were here, he would have made one for me. He was a very good woodworker and made several pieces of furniture for my husband and I that we still use. And it's very high quality. Anyway, he's passed away last year, so I didn't have him to call and make a spinner for me, but I fixed my twister spinner. I took a piece of the twisty tie and put this little bead in it, bead through it, and then poked it through and twisted it so it spins. Okay? All right. Let's see if I can do this. Well, if I hold it up, that's going to make the spinner weight funny. So I'm going to have to do it flat, and then I'll show you. Oh, look at that. It's the brown twill with embroidery. You can't see it because it's all taped down. But that's going to be an interesting make. I'm not sure what to make with it, but I know it's going to be pretty. Okay, so that's it for my fabric wheel of fate. I will try to get back on YouTube this week and share what's going on in my sewing room. Until then, I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. I hope you enjoyed this video. It's really fun to see the other YouTubers who are participating in the Fabric Wheel of Fate. It's a great hashtag that Carole from So Carole started. And I think it's just a wonderful way to figure out what fabric you need to make up next. That's all for me. Please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the notification bell so you can see when I upload new videos. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye. Go so beautiful. I realized when I was editing that I did not show y'all the fabric that I'm going to use. So here's a close-up. You can see it's got really pretty kind of leaf and flower designs, and it's brown, and it's a little bit shinier on one side, but there's no stretch, and it's pretty heavy. And it looks like I have about 2 yards, maybe. Let's see. Anyway, I think it'd be cool to make like a pair of capri pants or ankle length pants for summer. But I don't know how this would feel against my skin. So maybe a jacket or a pinafore or a sleeveless dress that I line. Ooh, that might be pretty. Stay tuned and I'll see what I make.